The following podcast is intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Alone in the Realm, a premium solo TTRPG podcast. I'm DV, your humble GM and adventurer. Alone in the Realm is a podcast where we let the dice drive the story, and we are along for the ride. No characters beyond death, and we let the dice lay where they fall. We'll be playing Mothership by Tuesday Night Games, and the Mega Dungeon module, Gradient Descent, by Luke Gearing. Gradient Descent, Episode 13. Here's a reminder of our characters. Denzel McNelly, 11 out of 11 hit points. Wounds, 0. Stress, 2 out of 2. Bends, 24. Ada, 14 out of 14 hit points. Wounds, 0 out of 3. Stress, 12. Bends, 26. Therese Montz, 17 out of 17 hit points. Wounds, 0. Stress, 11. Bends, 6. Ollie Kenworth, 11 out of 11 hit points, reduced from 17. Wounds, 0 out of 2. Stress, 18. Bends, 10. In the last episode, we witnessed Ada's repairs and interactions with Grace's crew. She and Therese took another opportunity to partake in the sacrament of the Minotaur, though Noriko warned against doing it too often. Denzel returned to the Bell, and they all spend a week cooling down and recovering from their last experience. Our chaos factor is 7, and now we're going to test the scene, a D10. I got an 8 versus a 7, the expected scene. The expected scene for today is the crew has shore leave at the Bell for 5 days. The cost is 3,500 credits, plus repairs to their damaged gear. They'll trade in their extra combat shotguns and ammo for the cost. We'll consider the Bell a C-class port, and we'll roll on the situations from the Hundreds supplement, which is a book of Mothership tables. I highly recommend it. We'll roll a D20 plus 19. That will get us past the first 19 that I don't think are applicable. And I got a 24. Getting dragged out of a bare-knuckle boxing ring, I think we'll adapt this to mean that Denzel and Grace get into a fist fight. Interesting. Denzel and the others made the most of their time back on the Bell. They spent time reading, relaxing, and chatting with one another. Even though it was dark and cold, it was comfort following their harrowing experience in the deep. Occasionally, the crew of Grace's ship, Karma, would filter in and out of the Bell. Lillian spent more time trying to convince Ada to allow her to remove her governor, and Grace liked to antagonize everyone. One event in particular between she and Denzel finally came to blows. Now I'll roll on the Mythic conversation tables. I got Haggle and Combative. Wow, that could not have come out better. That's crazy. The crew, minus Ollie, were floating around the garden after finishing a meal together when Grace came in to join them.
So, when you gonna deliver that payment you promised, Butler?
she sneered at Denzel as she floated toward him. He immediately frowned at her crass arrival. We've discussed it amongst ourselves, and I think we have something you might be interested in. They had indeed discussed it. They decided to leave only a couple of salacious dossiers on the data stick and keep the rest stored elsewhere for later use. Both dossiers implicated CloudBank officials in several illegal activities. For someone willing to blackmail and extort people, it could potentially be worth hundreds of thousands of credits. Denzel explained what they had for her, and her face wrinkled up in a frown.
That's it? Sounds like more work for me.
Regardless, she snatched the proffered data stick he held out to her.
I want the first artifact you find, too, or else I'll jettison old Doctor Boy into the cold of space.
Therese gasped at the threat. Denzel pushed himself toward the pirate. He grabbed the lapel of her jacket in his fist. You will do no such thing. We had a deal, and this is our portion of it.
Get your paws off me. I know you constantly pick your butt with those hands.
And she shoved Denzel backward. He growled as he grabbed one of the stabilizing cables spanning floor to ceiling. We aren't giving you anything else. That data you have is worth far more than the cost of running that med pod. Grace cackled and then propelled herself toward Denzel. He braced himself the best he could, but did not expect her fist to come flying at his face. Now we'll roll combat for Grace. She got a 32 versus a 50. That's a hit. Damage is her strength divided by 10, so that will be 3 damage to Denzel. Denzel is now at 8 out of 11 hit points. Denzel is going to return the favor with a combat roll. Come on, Denzel. Let her have it. 30 versus a 40. That's a hit. His damage is his strength divided by 10. That's 4. Grace is now knocked down with 1 wound. The NPCs don't have hit points unless they become major characters. Therefore, they take a wound for every hit. I'm going to roll on the blunt wound table -3 to make sure, in case I get a high roll, it's not going to kill her or cripple her from a simple punch. So, D10 -3. I got a 0. Alright, that's pretty good. Her fist connected with Denzel's jaw, and lights flashed before his eyes from the jolt. Luckily, he had been holding on to the support cable, or else he would have gone flying. He doubled up his legs and kicked Grace with both of them directly in her stomach. She had no additional support and flew backwards into the bulkhead of the bell. She collided with an audible oof. Grace floated there, rubbing the back of her head where it had banged against the wall.
Well, I guess you showed me, didn't you, tough guy?
She snarled. Without another word, she left the garden and retreated back to her ship. I do not think that was the best idea, Ada spoke up. Yeah, me neither, Denzel agreed, rubbing his sore jaw. They finished their meal in silence, and before retiring for the night, Denzel asked Ada if she could stay behind for a chat. She agreed, and he asked straight away if she was okay. She'd been acting strange as they left the deep. Ada considered for a moment, telling Denzel about the picture and how she believed she had been human once, but ultimately she decided against it. She just reassured him it was only the strain of the gunfight and worrying about Ollie's injuries. Denzel didn't buy it, but he let the issue drop. She then brought up the artifact they had found. She and Therese had been poring over the blueprints and determined that they were for an advanced jump drive feedback coil. It would allow ships to make jumps for half the fuel. It would be a huge boon for corporations and allow them to save millions on travel. Worth more than 10,000 credits, wouldn't you say? He joked about the offer from the Hasmos android Lara. Yes, far more. But is it not our duty to return these items to Hasmos? Ada responded. A few months ago, Denzel would have agreed. But after all they had seen at the Hodder Forest Reserve and now at Cloudbank, he wasn't so sure. We'll see, he said simply. He and Ada retired back to their bunks in the tank, and he discussed going back to the deep to plant the transceiver for the troubleshooter's leader. They, of course, were against going back so soon, especially since Ada had not fully recovered and Ollie was still undergoing treatment. Regardless, Denzel was eager to be rid of the thing. Okay, so now we're going to roll for our shore leave results. First, we'll roll for Denzel's healing. It should, well, actually, you know what? We're just not even going to roll for it. It'll just automatically go back to 11 out of 11. We're going to be resting for several days. Surely we could get the roll in a couple of days, so not worth rolling. But we will roll to see how much stress we relieve, and if any of that stress relief turns into an ability increase, which would be really useful now at this point. So first we're going to roll for Denzel. We're going to roll against his sanity. And we got a 35 versus a 28. That's a fail. When you're doing shore leave, when you failed your sanity save, that just means your stress is relieved, but you don't get to convert any of that stress to skill increases. Now we'll roll for Ada. We'll roll D100. She got a 71 versus a 21, which is also a fail. Her stress is relieved, but no conversion to ability or save increases. Therese, make your sanity save. 85 versus 36, another fail. All her stress is relieved, but no conversion to increases. And finally, Ollie, make your sanity save. Ooh, he got a 10 versus a 53. That's a success. We're going to roll 1d5 stress and convert that to one of his saves. So I'm going to roll 1d10 and divide it by 2. That is a 5. Nice. That's great. Okay, so I will take that 5 and increase his body save from 27 now to 32. So now his saves are 53 sanity, 29 fear, and 32 body. We are now on day 8 of our assignment. Ollie is still in the med pod for 2 more days, and Ada is still healing up from her pseudo-flesh patches. Denzel and Therese decide to make a short trip to the deep in order to place the troubleshooter's transceiver. Denzel's bends increase in the deep. We're going to roll a 1d10 by 7. His bends are now at 31. And Therese's bends increase by 9. Her bends go up to 15. Are you sure about this? Therese asked for the 5th time. Both she and Denzel were equipped in their work attire and standing in the reception area of floor 1 on the deep. Now I'll roll on Mythic domicile descriptors. I got abandoned and private. Abandoned private. The body that was previously hanging there was nowhere to be seen. The dirty carpet had bloodstains where Ollie had done his autopsy. Is there an encounter? We'll roll our D100. 46. No encounter. Yes, I'm sure. Let's get on with it, Denzel replied, noting the lack of the body. The smell was still present, though, and he swallowed the rising bile in his throat. They walked down the concrete stairs into the blasted security point. There was no indication the place had been attempted to be repaired. They stepped over the shattered remains and proceeded down the hallway where they could find the employee rec center. There was an intersection with a room marked storage on their left and one marked rec center employees only to the right. Denzel silently pointed to the rec center door and pushed it open with his foot, his combat shotgun held at the ready. Is there an encounter? 62. No. The room inside smelled of rust. Scattered gym equipment was in various states of disrepair, and many of the floor-to-ceiling mirrors were shattered, the glass crunching under their boots. They poked around for a moment, hoping to find something of interest. Therese picked up a 3-inch binder with reams upon reams of alien theory conspiracy materials. She let it drop to the floor. Denzel pulled over one of the weight benches to one of the corners of the room, stood upon it, and carefully placed the transceiver so that it could see the whole room with its fisheye lens. Satisfied, he dusted the rust from his hands. Okay, let's check these lockers and get the hell out of here. Arcady said he would only wait for a half hour. Therese nodded and opened the first locker. Mythic fate check. Is there anything of note in the first locker? 51 versus 75. Yes. Okay. It says in the gradient descent module that there is an unconscious diver in one of the lockers. So I'm going to ask Mythic, is it the unconscious diver? 10 versus 75. Yes. Extreme yes, actually. When the locker opened, Therese let out a scream of surprise. The body of a man slumped out of the locker and landed with a thud on the ground. A groan of pain let them know he was still alive. What the hell? Denzel walked over to the guy, his gun trained on his back. Hey, you awake? Are you hurt? The man groaned again and rubbed his head. Oh. His arms had cybernetic implants running along the length of his biceps and forearms. Denzel could see the outline of other cybernetics in the man's pant legs. He rolled over and opened his eyes to reveal heterochromatic irises, one blue and one gold. What happened? Where am I? The man said as he rubbed his head. Therese was looking around frantically, looking for additional threats. You're in the rec room of the Deep, on floor 1. We just found you stuffed in that locker, Denzel responded. He too was keeping an eye on the stranger and the door. Oh, wow. I guess Sika decided to not share the wealth from the artifact we found. He must have hit me in the head and stuffed me in here. Denzel grunted. Are you seriously hurt? Can you stand? The man struggled to his knees, rubbing his head all the while. My head hurts like hell, but I guess I'm okay otherwise. Who are you? Denzel introduced himself and Therese, but only their first names. Nice to meet you. I'm Manoj Chevalier. I wrestled in the Planetary Lethal Wrestling Circuit. Ever heard of it? I was a bit of a name there. He struggled to his feet, got dizzy, and sat down on a nearby bench. Me and my buddy Sika came here to get artifacts to pay for new cybernetics. I gotta stay competitive, you see.
Don't sound like much of a buddy to me,
Therese said. The man harumphed. Arcady's waiting for us on the visitor's dock. You wanna grab a ride with us? Denzel motioned toward the door. The man looked around, presumably for his gear. He opened the rest of the lockers in something akin to desperation. Mythic fate check. Does he find his weapon? Very unlikely. I got a 47 versus a 50, yes. He opened the last locker and pulled out a compact machine pistol. He brandished it with an "Aha!" He sheepishly lowered it when he noted Therese and Denzel, both pointing their shotguns at him. Oh, sorry about that. I just figured he took my gun with him. But I guess he had a little mercy on me. I'm ready when you are. Oh, and who's Arcady? He was awfully cheerful for someone who had just been betrayed. Denzel checked the time and decided they would take a chance in the adjacent storage room before leaving. Alright, so we're going to roll for another encounter in the storage room. We got a 57, none. Inside the storage room, the shelves were all broken and trash and detritus lined the floor. On one wall, a retinal scanner was patched into the wall with crude cabling and duct tape. "What is that?" Denzel asked Manoj as Therese rifled through the garbage. "No clue," the man said, stuck his face up to the scanner. "Don't!" Denzel shouted, but it was too late. A bright flash of lights emitted from the scanner, and Manoj took a step back with a shout. "Damn, that hurt!" he said, rubbing his eyes. He peered at a label written in ink along the top of it. "Access," it says. "Access to what?" "I don't trust anything in here, and I surely would not have done that if I'd been you," Denzel scoffed. Unknown to Manoj, he has just been brain scanned by Monarch. I'm going to roll on the random search table. D100. I got a 37. Small cache of microcassettes. Contains breathy stalker footage of the area you're in. Interesting. Therese held up a small case holding microcassettes within. They did not have anything to play them, but they should fit in Ada's terminal back in the bell. She placed them in her pack. Let's go ahead and roll for another encounter. I got 58, none. "Let's get out of here," Denzel said with finality. Manoj shrugged stupidly and followed the other two out into the hallway. Since they're hustling out, I will give them one last encounter check. I got an 86, none. After hurrying through the first floor and back to the Acheron, they were all breathing heavy as they entered the Acheron shuttle. "Who's this?" Arcady said, squinting at the newcomer. "Hi, Manoj Chevier," and he held out his hand for a shake. Arcady just narrowed his eyes further, if that was possible. Manoj saw the handshake would not be reciprocated and wiped his hand on his coveralls. After a moment, Arcady turned back to his controls and said, "We take off now." Denzel, Manoj, and Therese all took a seat and strapped in. Soon they were back on the bell once again. "You new here. I'll let Denzel give you tour. Do not cause trouble." Arcady left the Acheron and the others floating there in the docking bay. "What's his problem?" Manoj scoffed. "You never met Arcady before going into the deep?" Therese asked. "Nope. Me and Sika went straight to the station. We didn't need to stop here first. In and out was the plan." Denzel looked at him, wondering if he was telling the truth. In the end, it didn't really matter. He was here with them now. End of scene. Chaos factor is going to reduce by 1. It's now at 6. We'll do a bins check for Denzel. We're going to roll a D100, and if we roll over our bins, then we're fine. If we roll under our bins, then something will happen. Denzel got a 6 versus a 31. Oh no. That is increased empathy. Add 1 stress every time you see an android die. Oh boy. Now him, Therese, and Ollie all have empathy for androids. Therese, make your bins check. She got a 55. That's a pass. I'm not going to roll for Manoj. This was a quick mission for Denzel to get that transceiver installed for Rachel Kilroy. I think in the next scene, Ollie will be out of the med pod and Ada will be ready for action as well. I'd hoped the shore leave would get them there, but the dice had other ideas. We'll investigate what's on the cassettes during our downtime for our next mission. I'd like to take the opportunity to read a couple of my reviews. Thank you so much for these comments. First is from Ty Moore. He says, "One of the things I appreciate is the way DV explains the mechanic at the point of the roll. integrating this detail is an effective way to blend the game aspect with the narrative and keep the listener engaged. Hey, thanks a lot, Ty, for that comment. I really appreciate it. I hope that you enjoy the way I structure my narratives. I have another comment from YouTube, Errant Adventures Pod. So thanks so much for Errant Adventures for this comment on my work. I really appreciate your work as well. But Steve from Errant Adventures says, Mothership has been on my list to try solo, so I'm excited to see a solo play of it. Nice work. That means so much to me coming from you, Steve. I really appreciate your work as well, and thank you so much for the comment. If you'd like to leave me some feedback, I appreciate any and all feedback on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your content. If you want to help support the show, consider leaving a like and a comment, as that really helps the algorithm. Consider sharing the link on your favorite social media.
Hi, I'm John from Tale of the Manticore.
Robin from Stories from the First Watch.
PJ from A Wasteland Story and the Solo Roleplayers podcast.
Simon from Legend of the Bones.
Brian Rideout from Swords Against Madness.
Carl from The Lone Adventurer.
And I'm Trevor from Your Story Will Be Different.
And with our solo role-playing audio,
Narrative,
Actual play,
drama powers combined,
We are the Solo Roleplayers Podcast Network.
Usually accustomed to delving the depths,
Scouring the desert.
Surviving the wasteland,
or facing the dragon alone.
this time we have teamed up to bring you a curated collection
of the best,
highest quality,
Most dramatic,
And diciest.
solo roleplay podcasts in the world.
there are dozens of us.
So if you're looking for your next solo role-playing adventure,
roll over to soloroleplayersnetwork.com.
Sample and subscribe to something that takes your fancy.
And discover your new favourite solo role-playing podcast.
See you there.